right, now let's look at subtracting integers. So the good news is that subtraction is basically just addition in disguise. So we've learned everything we need to learn in terms of adding integers. So now it's just a matter of figuring out how to look at subtraction in a different way. So let's first of all look at the number line for a few examples. So I start at 18 and I end up at 6. So this is my starting point and I end up here. So based on what we talked about last time, I could write that as 18 plus negative 12 equals 6. Because I'm moving 12 places to the left, that's adding a negative 12. But if we think about the number line, the other operation that I could think of moving left, getting smaller, is subtraction. So an alternate number sentence, an equivalent number sentence for this would be 18 minus 12 equals 6. So subtracting 12 and adding negative 12 both have the result of moving 12 places to the left. So let's look at what happens if I start at negative 5 and end up at negative 17. So here I am. I'm at negative 5, and if I want to end up at negative 17, what I would have to add to that negative 5 would be negative 12, because that's what moves me 12 places to the left. And that's negative 17. So, however, as we noticed up here, the other operation that has the result of moving 12 places to the left on the number line is subtraction. So I could also write this as negative 5 minus 12 equals negative 17. And finally, if I start at 5 and I end up at negative 7, that's also 12 places, so that's plus negative 12, or alternatively, negative 5 minus 12 equals negative 7. So subtracting 12 and adding negative 12 have exactly the same result. So that means that subtracting a positive number is the same as adding a negative number. And let's think about specifically what negative number that is. So here, subtracting 12 is the same as adding negative 12. And remember that 12 and negative 12 are opposites. So if we wanted to generalize this, we would say that subtracting a positive number is the same as adding its opposite, which would be a negative number. So regardless of where I start, for example, if I have a number here and I subtract 7, I could rewrite that as adding the opposite of 7 or adding negative 7. So a subtraction problem can be rewritten as adding a negative, and we already know how to add two integers together. So let's look at a few examples. So here we've got negative 12 minus 7. So subtracting 7 is the same as adding the opposite of 7, or negative 7. Negative plus a negative, more negative, negative 19. Here we have 12, subtract 6. Subtracting 6 is the same as adding negative 6, which is 6. Although realistically that one you could probably just leave as 12 minus 6 because the result is positive. And then here we've got 12 minus 25. Well, that's the same as adding negative 25. I can see the result's going to be negative. And 25 minus 12 is 13. So the difference of the absolute values is 13, so negative 13. All right, so now our final type of question is when we are subtracting a negative number. So we'll recall that we just said that subtracting a positive number is the same as adding its opposite, which would be a negative. So let's go for a second off this idea that subtracting a number is the same as adding its opposite. And here we have 12 minus negative 4. So if we think about this as subtraction being the same as adding the opposite, let's say this is 12 plus the opposite of negative 4. Well, the opposite of negative 4 is 4, so that is the same as 12 plus 4, which is 16. So the end result here is that we ended up moving to the right 4 places on the number line, which is the move that addition makes. Another way to think about this without the mathematical vocabulary is we're starting at 12 and we want to make it less by -4. Well, making something less negative is the same as making it positive, so subtracting -4 is the same as adding a positive 4. So the shortcut to this rule is that subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive. So if we have 11 minus -4, that's the same as 11 plus +4, which is 15. Here we have -11 minus -9. Subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive. We want to get less negative by 9. So -11 plus 9 is going to be -2. So here's 2 things to think about. Always change the subtracting a negative to adding a positive. This is a good habit to get into. It helps cement what we're talking about, and it helps prevent silly mistakes. If necessary, especially at the beginning, feel free to rewrite the question with one addition sign if you think that's going to help you out. So here we have -19 minus -25. Subtracting a negative, same as adding a positive. And the end result there would be of -19 plus 25 would equal +6. So you'll notice that we're not changing the starting number. So remember that on the number line, this is our starting number, and this describes the movement. So the only thing we're doing is we're simplifying the movement by rewriting subtracting a negative as adding that positive value. So that does not change the starting point. And again, that's why it's good to get in the habit of changing the subtraction of a negative into the addition of the positive, just to make sure that we're not making any silly mistakes. So what would this look like with some larger numbers? Let's say we have -127 minus -52. So subtracting -52 is the same as adding +52. And now I am going to rewrite that because it's less confusing for me. Now I've just got an addition problem with 2 integers. So I can see that the end result is going to be negative because this one has a greater absolute value. I'll do 127 minus 52, which is 75, and then make the sum negative to get the final solution there.